All right, everybody, welcome to the call. This is Jeremy Miner. It's 4 o'clock Eastern. We've got several people that usually come into the call a few minutes late, which is fine. So we will record this. It's being recorded right now. Hope everybody had a great Labor Day weekend for the United States. If you're outside the United States, hope you had a great weekend. A couple of things just real quick. A lot of you have been through the 8-Week Academy. You've gone through the 21-Day Sales Challenge, which is a very basic intro to my training. You might have some other products. Some of you might have just subscribed to this weekly training call as well, so you don't know a lot about the training that we offer here within the 7-Figure Sales Training. So just real quickly, then we'll jump into the training. Of course, I am the CEO of 7-Figure Sales Training. As you would have saw from different ads, things like that. I am ranked actually in the top 1% of the top 1% of all salespeople in the entire world that sells any type of product or service. Actually officially ranked number 45th in the world, making over $2.4 million a year when I was in my sales. I was an employee at my job as well. So real quickly, what we're going to focus on today is the power of asking what I call consequence questions. Now, you might have heard of these questions before. Some people call them implication questions. I call them consequence questions. They're very, very powerful, and they're very, very important process. They're a very, very important part of the sales process. Without learning and asking consequence questions, your conversions are not going to be as high. Okay, so we're going to focus on that in just 1 second from now. What we're going to do, we're going to do some training for about 30 to 40, 45 minutes, right in that range. And then I'm going to open up the line for the last 30, 40 minutes, and we're going to have a Q&A session for you guys. I know a lot of you are probably just coming back from the weekend, so there might not be as many people on this call. You're listening to the recording, but whoever's on this call at the end, we're going to go through probably a 30 to 40-minute Q&A. Okay, we just got back from our 2-week trip to Poland and France, so all ready to go. Summer is over. Okay, so real quick, we're going to go over something, and we've covered this actually about 4 training calls ago. I talked a little bit about asking what I call clarifying questions. Now, if you're a member of the 8-Week Academy, if you have that product of ours, that's about 15 hours of training, we have a whole section on this type of training called clarifying questions, okay, probing questions, clarifying. If you're only a member of the 21-Day Sales Challenge, you have not had any of this yet. 21-Day Sales Challenge, a very basic intro to my training, probably less than 3, 4, 5%, okay? So what we're going to do, we have to understand first, before we answer a prospect's or a potential customer's question. So if they ask you a question, before you just go right in and answer it, it's extremely vital and important that you actually understand the reason why they're actually asking you the question in the first place. Okay, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples on this. Some of this is found within the 8-Week Academy, okay? So let me give you an example of what an average salesperson would do. And I've got this scripted out. So here's what an average salesperson would actually respond to a question. And let's say that you're selling knives for what we're about to go through. So let's say you sell knives. Let's say you're in a retail situation, you sell knives in your store. And the prospect comes up to you and points at some knives and quite, frankly says, how sharp are these knives that you have on your floor? How sharp are these knives? Most salespeople would say something like this. They would just answer. They'd say, well, they're extremely sharp. In fact, they've been rated the sharpest knife set that came to the market in the last few years. They cut very deep, which means they don't have any rough edges. So they honestly tell them, hey, these knives are extremely sharp. They've been rated the best knife set in the market the last few years. They cut very deep. They don't have any rough edges. The prospect then says something like this. Oh, I see. Well, I'm actually looking for a knife set for my 15-year-old daughter. She loves to cook. But I'd be completely terrified that she would get a really bad cut with these type of knives if they're that sharp. And what happens? Now the sale is pretty much over, right? The conversation turns awkward because the intent of that potential customer's question was not to get information on how sharp the knives were, right? But the salesperson, which is what most salespeople do, just assumed that they knew what the potential customer meant by the question on how sharp are these knives, because they've had other prospects ask them that question. And they just assumed from answering in the past that this is what this person wanted to know. But the prospect's actual question was more around the issue of safety for their 15-year-old daughter who would actually be using those knives. Do you see the difference? The prospect never asked, can we talk about the sharpness of knives for my daughter's safety? They didn't ask that question. They just said, how sharp are the knives? And the salesperson didn't go deep enough to find out why they actually asked that in the first place. You see, prospects ask questions, and write this down. This is very crucial to you. If you ever want to get up to, becoming a multiple six-figure salesperson, if you want to make $250,000 a year in your sales position, if you want to make $500,000 a year as a salesperson, if you want to get up over $1 million a year in commissions, not sales, but actual net commissions paid to you from your company, you have to understand that your prospects' questions, they might not mean what you think they mean. So write that down. They might not mean what you think they mean. Very important that you understand this, okay? So instead of taking this question, let's say at like face value, and just, telling them some factual answers, instead you're going to ask them to clarify on why they asked you that question in the first place, okay? So you could have asked, if they said, Alex, let's say your name's Alex. Alex, how sharp are these knives? Here's what you would ask, okay? You would say, well, I'm curious. Can you tell me more about why you asked me that? Can you tell me more about why you asked me that, just so I know? Or how about this? I'm curious. Did you ask me that for a reason? So write those questions down. I'm curious. Did you ask me that for a reason? Or I'm curious. Why did you ask me that? Or you can be a little bit softer. You can say, can you tell me more about why you asked me that? That's one I would use the most. Can you tell me more about why you asked me that? Okay? It's very neutral, and you're finding out why they're asking. It's not manipulative at all. You're asking a question. Just curious, can you tell me more about why you asked me that, just so I know? Then let them tell you why they asked that. Okay. Now, going back to that concern, if you just got on, you'll have to go back to the recorded part of the first 7 minutes to understand what we're training on right now. But if you would have went back, and when they said, how sharp are the knives that you're selling, instead of just saying, oh, yeah, they're the sharpest in the market, features, benefits, blah, 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 like the average salesperson would do, which is, 99% of what salespeople would do in that situation, you would simply ask them, okay, can you tell me more about why you asked me that? I'm curious, can you tell me more about why you asked me that? Okay? They would have then told you their concern that was for the safety of their daughter who would be using the knives. Okay? You would then been a much better, let's say, position to be able to answer their question that they were actually really asking you for. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you another example of, let's say, the wrong way to answer questions, and then I'm going to give you an example of how the seven-figure salesperson would answer those exact same questions. Okay? So I'm going to give you two different examples, and then we're going to jump into consequence questions today. So in this example, let's say that the salesperson and the prospect, let's say that they're having one of their first appointments, okay? And let's say the prospect is looking to stock a popular line of consumer goods. And we talked a little bit about this in the 8-Week Academy, if you're an 8-Week Academy member, okay? So the prospect would say something like this. And let's say that, like I said, you sell a popular line of consumer goods. Prospect would say, Alex, does your company accept returns? So let's say your name is Alex. Okay, prospect is going to ask you, does your company accept returns? Let's say they own a grocery store or something, or a retail store that sells toys or something like that, Toys R Us, just for example. The salesperson, the average salesperson, would say this. So the prospect would say, does your company accept returns? Average salesperson would say, well, we don't accept returns anymore, and here's why. Over the past few years, we found that if we accept returns, our customers are not really incentivized to move the goods at all cost. They don't care if they sell them or not. And that's a disadvantage to both of us. So about a year ago, we established a very firm policy of working all arrangements out before we do business. So it's really there to protect you and to protect us, if that makes sense. That's what a typical salesperson respond back, just the facts about what they do. Prospect here in this situation says this. Well, Alex, we got stuck with an inventory of really bad torn labels and damaged products about 6 months ago. We lost tens of thousands of dollars from that. There's absolutely no way I could ever survive a loss of that type again. It almost put us under. That's just not going to work for us. I'm sorry you wasted your time, but it's just not something that we can do. So here again, like the example that we just gave about the salesperson who sold nice. The salesperson does what? They assume that they know why they asked them that question, and they just rattled off an immediate answer. They just assumed because, let's say they had other prospects that asked them that same question in the past, and that's how they answered it, so they just assume that that's the answer for every prospect. Okay? But the salesperson the salesperson has had experience with other retailers in the past who wanted to be able to return inventory that was not sold, and he basically says, well, we don't do that anymore. Okay, they're both honest with each other, and at that point the discussion is basically over, and the sale is lost when it doesn't have to be. These little things right here separate average performers from salespeople who make $250,000, $500,000, even 7 figures a year in their job. These little things add up, guys. Okay? So let's look at what actually went wrong in this situation. And I want you to really pay attention right now. And then, like I said, we're going to train for about another 25 minutes. Then we're going to go into some Q&A. So let's first look at the actual question that was asked. The prospect asked the salesperson, does your company accept returns? They have to know, right? Now, to the salesperson, just so you guys kind of know that industry, because I'm familiar with that industry, that means the retailer wants to buy merchandise without having any risk of actually selling that. So let's say if they're Toys R Us, they want to buy the products, and if they don't sell them, they're going to give them back to this company. So there's no risk on their end. But the issue is the prospect's true intentions were not specified with their question, right? The question does not even specify what kind of returns and what circumstances actually might be for that situation. It doesn't even talk about that at all. But the salesperson just assumes they know why the prospect's asking them, and they just rattle off an answer. You see, what I'm teaching all of you, I'm not teaching you how just to be a salesperson. I'm teaching you how to be a master communicator. Okay? So with dialogue, you, the salesperson, are always drawing out the information from your potential customer. And when I say I'm teaching you how to be a master communicator, once you learn how to become a master communicator, you will always be the top salesperson in your entire company and more than likely your entire industry. That's just the way it works, okay? So I'm going to give you the correct way to answer this question now. Okay, and I want you to take notes on this. If you remember the 8-Week Academy, we talk a lot about this. I believe in week 5 or week 6, one of those weeks there. It's about a 2-hour training on this. Okay. So the prospect says to the salesperson, once again, hey, Alex, does your company accept returns? Now here's how the 7-figure salesperson would actually answer that or ask from that. Okay, and I want you to take notes. So, Alex, does your company accept returns? Well, I will tell you it's not something that we typically do a lot of. But I'm curious, though. Did you ask me that for a reason? Prospect says, well, yeah, we got stuck with an inventory of torn labels and damaged products about 6 months ago. We lost tens of thousands of dollars from that. I realistically cannot risk doing something like that again. Then the salesperson responds with this question. That makes sense. Can you tell me more about what happened just to see if I can even help you? Can you tell me more about what happened just to make sure I can actually help you? Write that down. Prospect then says this. Yeah, we had tons of torn labels, and about 18% of the inventory was completely damaged when we got it. It was a huge loss for the company. I probably lost $80,000 some dollars. and to a small retailer like me, that's a lot of money. Then the salesperson responds with this question. Okay, so you're asking about damage to the product itself and the actual labeling with the packaging, right? Yeah, for sure. That's what I did. Okay, so if the label or product is damaged in any way, what we can do for you is X, Y, Z, and then you follow up with that actually help you. Do you see how that works? Do you see how by asking just a very simple clarifying question, can you tell me more about what actually happened, allows your prospect to actually open up to you and tell you what's going on, and then you can actually give them a solution to actually take care of that situation. That is one of the biggest differences is from becoming an average salesperson to a salesperson who makes multiple six figures a year, $500,000 a year in income, over 7 figures a year in sales income. I'm not talking about sales. I'm talking about commissions paid to you. Okay? Big difference. Now, notice the sequence of this conversation. What happens? There's 4 things. Prospect asks the question. Second, salesperson sees that the question does not really provide enough info, right? Because we don't know what he means by that. So the salesperson asks, I'm curious, did you ask me that for a reason? I'm curious, did you ask me that for a reason? Number 3, the prospect then tells them in more detail what he meant by that question and why he was actually asking it. And number 4, the salesperson feeds back the customer statement and offers them a possible solution with a question at the end if that would actually help their situation. Okay? Now, this brief answer you give them such as, we possibly do that, generally yes, generally no. You could also say things like, well, it just depends. Okay? So going back to when they asked that question, and I gave you that answer when I said it's not something we do a lot of. So it's not something that we typically do a lot of. Instead of asking that, you could also ask, well, it just depends. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can handle it. Well, it just depends, or it's not something we typically do a lot of. Okay, so you're leaving the door open that it could be a possibility that you can help them. So basically what happens with these answers to your prospects' questions is showing that you actually respect their question. You're not hiding it under the rug. You can't throw away things like that under the rug because they're going to stay in the prospect's mind. You just don't understand the question enough to answer it for them until you ask a clarifying question. So you're being very upfront. You're not being evasive. You don't understand why they're asking. Okay? You have to find out more. And they'll respect you for that. They will look at you more as an authority figure, like we call it a trusted authority, rather than just another salesperson who's there at their office trying to stuff their solution down their throat. And they're going to treat you much differently than most salespeople because 99% of the salespeople they deal with on a daily basis just don't care. They're just there to make the sale and stuff it down their throat. And they pick up on that. They pick up on your agenda, okay? So you're going to be very careful with that. Now, we're going to go over for about the next 15 to 20 minutes what I call consequence questions, sometimes called implication questions. Okay, there's a couple different words. I typically use consequence questions on that. Okay, so I want you to take really good notes about what we're going to train on right now. So here at this point, you're coming down the path where you have to get your prospect, and this is very vital if you want to be a top 1%er in your company or in your industry for that matter. You have to get them to think about the consequences of not doing anything about changing their situation, about solving their problem. What are the consequences if they don't do anything about the problems they just told you they had? You have to get them to think about those and question it in their mind. Now, what is more persuasive? You asking the right questions that I teach you that get them to question their way of thinking, or are you just telling them what they should do? Which is obviously more persuasive? Of course, them coming to that conclusion themselves. Now the question is, how do you get your prospect to come to that conclusion yourself? You ask very skilled questions that allow them to persuade themselves from the answers they're giving you But more importantly, who are they giving those answers to? They're giving them to themselves. And when people start to tell themselves why they have to change their situation, why they have to solve their problems, is that more persuasive than you telling them why they should solve their problems? I think we all know the answer to that. Behavioral science has proven that that's just a straight fact. Okay? So it's kind of like this question. What will they do if they don't do anything about solving the problems that they actually just told you they were experiencing? What are they going to do if they don't do anything? It's like the what-if question, okay, such as these two questions, and write these down. What if you don't do anything about this problem and your situation gets even worse? Mr. Prospect, what if you don't do anything about what you told me and your situation gets even worse? What if you don't do anything about this problem and your situation gets even worse? Or this question, what if this product you're thinking of didn't get you the results you thought it would? What if this service you're thinking of didn't get you the results you thought it would? So all you're really doing is you're taking a problem that they told you they had. Okay, now how do you find out what their problems are? You ask what we call problem awareness questions. And if you remember the 8-Week Academy, we have a full hour and 35-minute training on problem awareness questions in week 4 of the Academy. Very detailed, okay? So that's how you find out their problems, but more importantly, they find out their problems, right? Problems they might not even realize they had. But your questioning skill level that I teach you draws out those problems, okay? So all you're really doing here is you're taking them through that process. They're telling you the problems they had. They're telling you why they want to solve them, and you're asking them a question around that problem that allows them to think about the possible implications or the possible consequences if they don't do anything to solve it. Are you with me? Okay? So you can use consequence questions in 2 different formats. Let me give you those 2 formats. And like I said, take very detailed notes on this training call. Now, the first way is to ask a question to get them to think about problems they might not even know they have. Okay? Now, if you remember the 8-Week Academy, we talk a lot about learning how to become a problem finder and a problem solver. We've always heard that the greatest salesmen are the best at solving problems. But I will tell you in our day and age, it goes far deeper than becoming a problem solver. You have to be even better at problem finding, because I will tell you 90% of your prospects don't even think or know that they have problems. That's why they've never done anything about it. You have to first help them find those problems, not just you finding them. It doesn't matter what your opinion is, right? It only matters on whose opinion? Their opinion. So you have to learn skilled questions that we teach in the 8-Week Academy that focus on actually helping them find what their problems are, and you. And once you find those, then you can actually solve those for them. Okay? So the first way is to ask a question to get them to think about the problems they might not know they have. Okay? Because sometimes, especially if you're an experienced salesperson in your industry, you've experienced other customers that you've helped, and it allows you to see problems that this customer might not see. So you've helped 100 gazillion other prospects with the same problem. So you have the experience, you know you can help this person. So let's say, for example, one of your existing clients, and I'm going to give you this example that's pretty clear. Let's say you already have a customer. They've been with you for 5 years. One of your biggest accounts, but they're thinking about leaving your company and going with another company who offers similar services to what yours does that might even be better than what you have. But that's okay, because if you know the skills, they're never going to leave you. It doesn't matter if your price is way higher, because they will look at you as the authority figure, and they look at everybody else as somebody on the sidelines. Okay, they look at you as a star quarterback. They look at everybody else as just the backup guy, the practice squad guy, okay, if you're into football. So you can ask them something like this. So let's say they're looking at another company. They might leave your company. This is a long account you've had for several years. They're thinking about going with another company who does something similar to you. You can ask this consequence question. So, Alan, have you considered what could happen if switching to a different company didn't get you the personal results you said you're wanting? Have you considered what could happen if switching to a different company didn't get you the personal results you said you were looking for? And then you can ask this. So if there was a way, and I don't know if there is yet, we'll have to find out, but if there was a way that you could get those same results that you're now wanting without having you to do all the work of changing companies, would you be open to looking at that as a possibility? Let me repeat that. So, Alex, if there was a way that you could get those same results that you're now wanting without having to do all the work of actually changing companies, would you be open to looking at that as a possibility? I'm just going to go through that whole thing again. Alex, have you considered what could happen if switching to a different company didn't get you the personal results you said you're wanting? Well, we've possibly thought about that. Okay, well, I'm not quite sure yet, and I'll have to do a little bit more, finding out from you. But if there was a way that we could get you those same results that you're now wanting without having you to do all the work of changing companies, would you be open to looking at that as a possibility? Now, I want you to step back, let them reflect, and respond on their decision on opening the conversation that will allow you to show them how you could possibly help them get them where they're wanting to go or what they're actually looking for. It's very neutral, yet very powerful, because they don't look at you as someone who's just there that's worried about losing the account. They look at you as an advisor or an authority figure that's only there to do what? To help them solve their problems. If you're an employer and a salesperson that was talking to you, you honestly felt they were only there to help you solve their problems. They weren't just there to sell you, but they had genuine concern. How would you actually treat that salesperson? Completely different than all the salespeople who are just there to try to sell you something, right? Let's be real, okay? Now, the second way to use these powerful questions is right after you ask them a few what we call solution awareness questions. Now, if you're a member of the 8-Week Academy, which I would suggest all of you should have that product if you want to get to a higher level in your company or business. It's 15 hours of training. In week 5, we have a full hour-and-a-half training on solution awareness questions and when to ask those and how to ask those and different examples. So you want them to picture in their mind what will happen if they don't do anything about changing their situation. So consequence questions will help create urgency in them doing something about it now rather than down the road. Helps you create urgency for them to buy now, not later. Okay? So you can ask, for example, and I'm going to give you 4 or 5 of these consequence questions. And try to write these down if you can. If you can't write them down, this will be recorded so you can just go through it, kind of fast forward it to the 30-minute mark and write some of these down. Okay? You can ask, for example, Johnny, have you considered the possible ramifications about not doing anything about your situation? Have you considered the possible ramifications about not doing anything about this? Have you thought about what would happen if you don't do anything? Mr. Prospect, have you thought about what would happen if you don't do anything? Sally, can I ask you something? Have you thought about what would happen if you don't do anything about changing your situation? Now, I'm going to give you my favorite, most powerful consequence question to ever ask your prospects. This one question made me millions of dollars a year in commissions. Okay? Write this down. And it depends on the situation on how you'd ask this, but I'll just give you a couple of these questions in different formats. Sally, what are you going to do if nothing changes? I mean, if you keep doing the same thing the next several years. Or what are you going to do if nothing changes, Sally, if you keep doing the same thing the next 5 or 10 years? Or this way, what are you going to do if nothing changes? I mean, if you keep using the same service you're using now the next 2 or 3 years? John, what are you going to do if nothing changes? I mean, if you keep using the same product you're using now the next 5 or 10 years? And you say it exactly like that. Okay? Now, here are some more phrases that you can use for your consequence questions depending on the product or service that you actually sell. Okay? Now, these phrases can help develop your prospects' potential problems into them wanting to solve those and actually solve those with you. Okay? So write these down. Try to write them down as quick if you can. Okay? And like I said, if you can't write them down, this is recorded. Just go to about the 26th, 27th mark of the recording and then just write those down. Okay? You can ask something like this. Amy, what would it do to you if you were not able to get what you're looking for? Miss Prospect, what would it do for you if you're not able to get what you're looking for? Or this, what if it didn't work out for you? Or this question, what would happen if you didn't do anything about this? They think about that, and they tell you what's going to happen. So when you ask these questions, they think about it in their mind. They tell you about what's going to happen if they don't do anything, which is typically going to create more problems in their business or their situation or whatever they're doing. But more importantly, who are they actually telling that to? They're telling themselves. And once again, when your prospects start telling themselves why they have to change their situation now, do you think that is far more persuasive than you telling them why they should change their situation now? Right? I think you know the answer to that. So here's some more questions. Amy, does that cause you to be concerned? Does that give you concern? Or this, have you considered the consequences of not doing anything about solving this? Have you considered the consequences of not doing anything about this? Or what if you lost? Or this, what would it do to you personally if you don't solve this problem? That was one that I used a lot in my sales career. I would ask this question all the time. So what would it do to you personally if you don't solve this problem? Oh my gosh, you have no idea. It's going to do this, it's going to do that, it's going to cause stress. Well, wait a minute, what do you mean by stress? Well, I mean, for the past year, because we've going through all this financial burdens and this stuff, it's caused a lot of stress. Okay, so it's been going on a year. Has that stress had an impact on you? Oh, you have no idea. Well, in what way? Do you see how you can take that one question and just go so deep that they get so emotional, okay, that they have to do something about it now? And they're going to do that with you because no other salesperson that they've ever talked to have they ever opened up to. They've only told other salespeople some facts. But because of your skilled question ability that I'm teaching you, I'm giving you access to, you not only get the facts, but you also get what? You get the feelings, right? And do people base their buying decisions on logic or their emotion? Behavioral science says it's 100% emotion, and then they try to justify it with logic. That is why most salespeople stay average, because they only ask questions, they get logical answers, and they never go deep into the emotional side. And that is where the sale is made. If you want to be a top 1% salesperson in your entire industry and the top salesperson for your specific company, it doesn't matter if your company has 3,000 reps, 10,000 reps, 50,000 salespeople, you will always be number one, hands down. Okay? Here's a couple more questions I'm going to give you. So, John, how would your life be different than it is now? So you changing this situation, how do you see your life being different than it is now? Now, I want to make sure you guys understand, an implication or consequence question can actually be positive as well. It doesn't have to focus on the problems. When you ask them, how do you see your life being different than it is now? So you solving this problem, how would your life be different than it is now? Oh, you have no idea. It would relieve all this stress. I wouldn't come home to my husband all the time and tell him all the issues I'm having at work with my boss and just all this stuff, right? You see how that works? How would your life be different than it is now solving this? What would happen if you don't get what you're looking for? What would happen if you didn't get what you're looking for? Or this question, how would it make you feel if you didn't solve this? John, how would it make you feel if you didn't actually solve this? Or in the flip side, you can ask a positive consequence question. You say, how would it make you feel to actually solve this? How would it make you feel to solve this? Or what would it do for you personally to be able to solve this? Write that question down. It's a very powerful question. What would it do for you personally to be able to solve this problem you just talked about? What would it do for you personally to be able to solve this? Oh, you have no idea. It would do this, it would do that. Well, in what way? Do you see how you still have to go deeper, okay? Top salespeople, the top 1% of all salespeople in the entire world understand this very, very importantly. It's like peeling the layers off an onion. The more layers you peel, meaning the more questions you ask, skilled questions. You can't just ask questions that are not skilled because they look manipulative, they'll look boring, and the customer will tune out. They'll reject you. Okay? So you have to learn the skilled questions that I'm teaching you within the new model of selling. Traditional selling, I hate to tell you guys, is just traditional. It's on its way out. It's dead. The consumer's completely different than they were in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s when those sales skills were taught, and they're still perpetuated today because salespeople have no idea. They think that's the only way to sell. They look like pushy robots out there, and they have no idea that there's other ways, okay? Ways that are 10 times more effective, that get 10 times more results, okay? So we have to understand, if you want to get into the top 1%, you have to ask more of those skilled questions that peel the layers off of the onion. The more layers you peel, the more feeling side, more emotions they bring to the table, and the more persuaded they actually persuade themselves. That is the biggest difference. If you want to become a top 1% salesperson in your industry, and if you want to keep mastering the new model of selling and becoming a top 1% salesperson in the entire world, or if you went to a level further and become a top 1% of the top 1% of all salespeople in the world and make millions of dollars a year in commissions. Okay? All right, good. So we're about 38 minutes past the hour. I wanted to give us a little bit more time for Q&A today. So we've got about 30 to 40 minutes today of Q&A. I'm going to open up the line. So what I want you to do, the question that you have for me, and make sure you ask me questions. Don't be shy, guys. Don't be shy to be the first one to come out and say, hey, I'm not sure about this, or what can I do better on this, or how do I respond with this? That's how you learn. That's how you grow, okay? Don't worry. I mean, there's thousands of people that are listening to this, okay? Not necessarily on this call, but they'll listen to the recorded version. There'll be thousands of people that will hear you, okay? But guess what? They're not your next-door neighbor. It's okay, all right? So that's the only way you grow, if you can open up and be realistic about where you're at in your situation and in learning how to communicate, okay, to become a master salesperson, because if you don't ask me these questions, you can't grow in your sales process, and that affects your sales, it affects your income, and because it affects your income, it affects your whole family, right? So don't be shy. So what I want you to do when you come out off the line, because I've got everybody muted right now, just tell me your name, tell me your industry in and the product or service that you sell, and then just let me know what products in mind do you have. Do you just have the 21-Day Sales Challenge, which is a very basic intro? If you only have that, I know that there's still a lot of learning you have. If you have the 8-Week Academy, you've got a lot more of my training, okay? If you've got this product or that product, it'll help me understand where you're at in learning the new model of selling. So who's got the first question? If you've got the first question, just press *6 on your phone. Let's try to keep it where it's not rowdy, where we don't have 10 people talking over each other, but *6 on your phone. Who's got the first question? *6 on your phone.
Hello?
Yeah, who's this?
This is Steve. Colorado Springs,
Steve,
Colorado.
I have like hundreds of Steve.
Storm Chaser.
Okay, Steve the Storm Chaser. Okay, so I think I asked a question maybe a couple weeks ago. I can't remember. So tell me again specifically what you actually sell.
Well, what's interesting about all this, mine's a little different than everyone else's in the sense the dynamics are a little different in the sense that I'm not selling anything really. Maybe I'm selling them on their time to come into our shop to drop their vehicles off at our shop. We've got hail damage. Okay. And what we do is we waive their deductibles and we take care of the rental car process. And really, it's that simple. I mean, it's all that we do. So we're really not charging them anything, and we we cover all the expenses, and that's it. You know.
Okay, but you're still trying to persuade.
There you go.
Influence them to actually do that. Now, do you get paid? Do you get a paid commission for that?
It's 25% on each of the cars or the vehicles or trucks. Cars.
Yeah. So if you're getting a commission, you're a salesperson, right? So
correct.
Anytime. Okay, there's two classes of sales. There's sales, and then there's what I call non-sales selling. Non-sales selling is where you're not necessarily paid a commission to make the sale, but you're still out there influencing, persuading, trying to convince somebody to your way of view. So let me give you a few examples. If you're an attorney, right, trying to convince like a judge that your client's innocent, you're not a salesman, right, but you're still trying to convince, influence, persuade somebody, right? If you're a teacher trying to get your class to be quiet, you're not getting paid a commission to do that, but you're still trying to influence, convince, or persuade somebody, right? So with your situation, since you're getting paid 25% per deal, you're in sales for sure. Okay, good. What's your question, brother?
So mine's interesting because some of the guys I've talked to in a little chat there on the your site on the Facebook wanted to know what I do to get inbound calls. And I don't mind just telling, it's fine. I don't care if I were to, because mine's a little different than everybody else's. But I'll put little Post-it notes on a vehicle with it says, please call and my phone number. And then they'll call me. And it's amazing. You just put out a bunch of those in a day. You get a ton of inbound calls. It's brilliant.
Okay.
And my idea, of course, and is to set up the appointment, arrange for a time for them to come into the shop to assist and help them out.
Now, what product line do you actually have, just so I know what you're learning?
What product line? I mean, trying to be clear on that. They're just there's automobiles that we're working with.
No. What I'm asking is, what products of mine do you have, so I know what you've learned so far?
Oh, what products? Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. I've got the 21-day sales. I purchased the 8 weeks sales course.
You have the 8-week academy now. Have you actually gone through the entire 8-week academy?
Not all of it. I've only been through the 1 through 4, and it's fascinating because I'm learning a lot. It's going to help. Yeah.
What do you think you're learning the most from one? Now, remaining psychology, but 3 and 4 get very specific. Yeah.
When people are calling in, I'm just kind of basically saying, they want to know what the vehicle, the note was regarding. And I said, well, this is Stephen. I was just curious. I had a question. I'm not sure if you could actually help me out, but just can I just ask you a question real quick? And then of course I just go into it. I just basically indicate. So look, I was just doing a free inspection.
Let me make a suggestion.
I don't know. Go ahead.
You don't want to use a problem statement on an inbound lead. You started out, can I ask you a question? Okay. You don't want to use a problem statement. So that's in week 3 of the academy. It's called a problem statement. You only use it if you're cold calling. That's like dialing a number out of a phone book. They don't know who you are. They've never responded to anything. They're not calling you. You're calling inbound leads. So what you need to focus on is week 3. You need to go back to week 3 and go through what I call connecting questions. Okay? So when they call you, you're like, yeah, this is Steve. They're like, oh, this is so-and-so. I saw your ad. Okay, yeah, so you must have responded to that. I was just curious, before I go into who we are and all that kind of boring mumbo-jumbo stuff, what was it about the note I left you that actually attracted your attention to even want to call in the first place? Well, we've had this, we've had that. And why do we ask connecting questions? We ask connecting questions because it takes the focus off us and it puts it on who? It puts it on them, right?
Right.
Okay. So you need to go back to week 3 and start asking connecting questions, and then you're going to start going down the dialogue process into situation or background questions. And then, like you learned in week 4, problem awareness questions. See how that works?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you'd never ask a problem statement in an inbound lead. That's only for cold calling.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. So you've been doing it wrong, but it sounds like you're probably getting more results even though you're not even doing it the right way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so even though you're doing it wrong, you're probably getting some more results. But once you really dial it in, Steve, and you ask connecting questions and background questions, especially with what you sell, you should have 80, 90% closing ratio there.
I want to say you're right because there are some people who are actually doing that.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, we have people all the time that go from 10, 20% conversion rates in their industry, and they're doing 60, 70, 80%. So if a person goes from 20% conversions to 80%, they're making 4 times the sales. They're making 4 times the income.
Mm.
See how it works? So if you're making $80,000 a year, you realistically should be making 4 times that with what you're selling.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars out there.
$320,000 a year selling the same thing.
Yeah. Right.
Does that help you?
It does. That's good. I like it.
Okay. Yeah, so go back to week 3. Go through, I think about halfway down, we talk about calling leads or calling inbound leads, talking inbound leads, and we talk about connecting questions. That's where you really start there. And just write at the end of week 8, there's a PDF that has all of the questions from each stage. It has connecting questions. It has 3 or 4 background questions or situation questions. It has problem awareness questions. It has 3 or 4 solution awareness questions, which you haven't got to that training yet because that's in week 5.
Correct.
But if you go to the PDF at the end of week 8, just print that PDF off of it, and the connecting questions are right there. But just, don't just start spouting them off. You need to go back to week 3 and really learn why we're asking those connecting questions.
Right.
Got it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and when we launch our coaching program, so we're launching our a lot of you guys know this. I mean, we've got 100,000 members at this point, whatever. So we haven't sent out an email, but a lot of people on these calls know about it. We're launching our one-on-one coaching program, where we have, I think, 40 some people that I trained a couple years ago, one-on-one. They each made over 500. They went from whatever they were making. Some of them were like $20,000 a year, and eventually, from what I trained them, because I trained them one-on-one, became earners that started earning over $500,000 a year, selling the same thing that they were selling. So I've actually hired most of those people now, and they will actually be coaching you guys, taking you through the 21-day sales challenge, taking you through the 8-week academy. So that all rolls out September 30th. So that might be something that will help you kind of get the process dialed in even more, because they actually train you one-on-one. Okay, but that, like I said, we're 3 weeks out before we launch that. Okay. All right, Steve. So go ahead and press *6 on your phone to mute yourself real quick, if you don't mind. And who's got the next question for us? Just press *6. And I appreciate you coming out, Steve. But who's got the next question? *6.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeremy.
Okay, so the first one that said Jeremy, then we'll go to the second gentleman. We got to get some ladies in here. Ladies, don't be afraid.
Well, I think there's a lady, so I will let her go first.
That was not a lady.
I agree.
Guys, sorry, I've got so many people talking right now. So the first person that came out and said Jeremy, can you tell us your name?
Yes, this is
my name is Stanley. Go ahead first. I think we said Jeremy at the same time. Go ahead first, and then I'll wait, and then I will go after you. My name is Stanley. Go ahead first, whomever it is.
Okay, this is Brandon.
Brandon. Okay, that's the voice that I thought I heard. Okay, Brandon, what do you sell, Brandon?
Okay, so I'm helping people I'm helping people get unclaimed funds from the government.
Unclaimed funds from the government. What does that mean specifically?
I think when I don't know exactly how we find those funds. I know that when people, have various assets, sometimes the government will hold on to X amount of cash, and they have to claim that, and they have a certain amount of time to do so.
Huh. Oh, I've never heard of your industry. So you actually you have leads that call in for this, or how do you have leads, or how?
So it's a relatively new organization, and what my boss does is find like basically the people that have the highest money that the government owes them, and then I actually will try and go through and get in touch with them. I literally have to find their numbers online, however I can. In some cases, they're relatively close. My question was more along the lines of...
Okay, so hold on, Brandon, just 1 second. What products of mine do you have so I understand what you've learned so far?
So I have everything. 8-week academy. I did the 21 sales challenge before that.
How long ago did you go through the 8-week academy?
It might have been, 2 weeks now, maybe 3. How much
have you gone through?
Oh, I finished the whole thing. I'm on my way back over it. I just finished the bonus DVD again.
Wow, you went quick, dude. That's like 15 hours. That's insane. Good for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, yeah. I meant I finished it 3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Okay, good deal. Okay, so you've gone through the 8-week academy. That's good. So that kind of helps me where you're at. Okay, so just off the surface, I would suggest to you that and I don't know a lot about your industry, so I could be wrong here, but I'm going to make an assumption, which I hate doing. But to me, your industry, I have not heard of this, but if I was a consumer and somebody called me saying that the government owed me money, I would probably instantly skeptical about that.
Exactly.
Okay, so that probably happens. So you're probably in an industry that almost sounds too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just throwing that out there. So that's something that you're competing with on a daily basis, because if somebody calls you and said, hey, the government owes you $50,000, I'd be like, wow, I really want to believe that, but is this somebody calling me from Nigeria that's going to have me wire $1,000 and then I'm going to get scammed, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so good deal. So what's your question?
Okay, I guess my question is, first off, since he doesn't really get a lot of those, nor does he get them quickly, I need to be I literally need to get these pretty much perfect. I guess my question was, in some cases, they're only like 5 hours or so away of a drive, and it's actually where I'm from. So I was thinking I might just go to South Florida and then knock on a couple of doors while I was there, because we get the addresses. But it's a little bit harder to find the number. I was wondering what's usually better conversion rates between knocking on a door or picking up the phone.
Okay, so I want to clarify something. So I want to make sure I understand what you're asking. Okay, so these are people that your boss gives you. So these are people that he finds out the government owes them a lot of money, and he gives you their address and their phone number, or only their address?
Address and name, and I have to find their phone number, but I do actually know where they live.
Okay, so you have their address and you have their name. And then how many times do you get their phone number? Is it usually half the time, a third of the time? How often?
It's pretty tough. Like probably a third of the time we can get the number, and then every so often those numbers are wrong.
Okay, and does he get these people that live in your area, or are you driving or flying, or what's going on?
So for the most part, they've literally all been in South Florida, and that's actually where I'm from. So I've told him to kind of continue doing that. But yeah, there's people in college. There's people all over the U.S., but I told him just focus on South Florida because I might.
Well, here's what I would do, and this is not really going to help you, but if I was your boss of your company, I would learn the right copy and actually do direct mail pieces to them about that, where they opt in to your website, where you actually have their phone number to call. But obviously he's not doing that, so that's not really going to help you. Okay?
Right.
So basically the way he has you do now, so basically is he saying to you now, like, hey, if you can't find their number, just go knock on their door?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And then typically before you started learning the new model of selling, what was your process? What did you actually say when you knocked on that door before you...
So I actually came into this. I've literally just come into this, like very new. I've only called people as of now.
Okay.
And so far when I call, right off the bat I'm getting objections. And I'm starting with I was wondering if you can possibly help me out for a moment. And maybe my problem statement is slightly off, but most often I'm getting like, I don't know you kind of objections like.
Well, tell me what your problem statement is.
Well, the problem statement is, how government agencies will sometimes hold on to unclaimed funds, but between strict time limits, legal fees, or hiring a notary, people fail to claim those funds.
Okay, but if somebody gave me that problem statement, I would be like, I don't know. I've never heard of that. Do most of these people, have they ever heard of government agencies owing them funds?
No.
That's the issue that you're coming across with, because your problem statement doesn't, it's not a problem that they have because they don't think that they even are owed by the government.
Yeah, I see.
You see, that's why they're not resonating with that. So if somebody called you and said, and Brandon, and just go back to before you even learned about your industry. So go back into what you did 2 years ago. And if a salesperson called you and said, you know how a lot of government agencies owe money and they do this and people can't get it because of that, what would be going on in your mind?
I would have no clue what they were talking about.
You'd be like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So when you do a problem statement, it has to focus on problems that they can actually identify with, or at least know somebody that's going through those same problems. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Your problem statement, they wouldn't even know what that meant, so that's why they're throwing out those objections. Okay?
I see.
So what I need you to do, and we don't have time to go through and create a whole problem statement because we'd be on the call for 45 minutes to an hour to do that, right?
Yeah.
But what I need you to do is go back, and I need you to go back to week 3 and focus on the problem statement and come up with 1 or 2 problems that your product, your service does that actually solves the problems these people have, but something that they can actually identify with. Has to be a problem that they would know about. And like I said, I don't know your industry well enough just to come up with a problem statement in 10 seconds because this is the first time I've even heard of this. But if you can do that a couple times and actually post it on one of the Facebook groups, I can actually review your problem statement and make suggestions once I see what you come up with.
Okay.
And like I said, this coaching platform, this is going to solve all these problems anyways for you guys. We don't even charge you for the coach. If you've already bought the 8-Week Academy, we actually give you the coach for free, like the first 8 or 10 appointments anyways, okay? So the coaching platform, when we roll that out September 30th, might actually help you nail down the problem statement even better. But go ahead and post it when you get it on the Facebook chat, and I'll go through it myself.
Okay, and real quick, can you answer the part about the door knocking? Would you recommend definitely doing door knocking as opposed to the phone if I can?
I would do the phone first, just because I'm lazy and don't want to go out and knock doors. I think the phone is just as effective if you have a good problem statement.
I see.
If you,
okay.
It doesn't, guys. You don't have to go knock face to face. Once you have the problem statement dialed in, 7, 8 out of 10 times that you're cold calling, they're going to say, "Well, yeah, how do you do that?" Or "What do you mean by that?" And then you go through your personalized introduction. Well, you know how, right? And what I do is we solve XYZ problem, right? And then you go into background questions, problem awareness. It becomes very easy to call all day long. It's not that big of a deal. So myself, I would call. I would never go knock on doors myself.
Okay.
I just don't think
all
it's
right.
necessary, unless you just like to go out for a drive.
That's a long drive.
It's a 5-hour drive, yeah. You never catch me doing that, brother.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, great question, Brandon. I appreciate it. Okay, guys, we've got time for a couple more questions. We've got about 15, 16 more minutes here. Brandon, why don't you go ahead and mute out? Brandon, just press *6 on your phone again.
Jeremy?
Yes, Stanley, right?
Yes, hi, Jeremy.
Hey, Stanley. Okay, Stanley, what do you sell?
Jeremy, one thing one feedback from the previous person who called you regarding the government, what the government owned them. If I'm not mistaken, you were talking about the problem statement, but I think he got it a bit confused, if I'm not mistaken, for his personal introduction, because you only mentioned how, but it wasn't really a problem statement, which is what you were saying. At the same time, I think he has a confusion between the problem statement and the personal introduction, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, when he says, I was wondering if you could help me out for a moment, I think he was mixing that and the problem and the personalized introduction together. Because the start of the problem statement would be, I was calling to see if you could possibly help me out for a moment. That would be the start of the problem statement, and then he jumped into the personalized introduction.
Yes.
Both.
Thank you. And I was just calling for a question to pick your brain, and also for feedback regarding what you said about the 21 days sales challenge being 3% of what you teach, which is.
So tell me again, what product or service do you sell? Just so I have background.
I sell what they call merchant funding, which is business cash advance, which is they call it also short-term loan. So I call companies.
Okay, hold on one second. I apologize. Did you say merchant funding?
Yes.
So
why is merchant funding is because you can, let's say, borrow $20,000, and that money will be they will collect it by a percentage of every credit card or debit card sales that will occur
Okay, you're
in the
talking about
future.
merchant accounts. So you're like merchant account provider, right?
No, it's merchant funding or short-term loans or what they call cash advance for businesses.
Oh,
so
sure.
as an example,
For businesses.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
and
correct.
what products of mine do you have?
I have everything of yours. I have everything, and the 8 weeks sales training. I went to it probably 6 times each video. I went to every sales call probably 3 times each. I became literally a nerd. So one thing I wanted to give you one feedback and ask a question, if that would be okay. The one feedback is when you say the 21-day sales challenge, because very often you talk to people who only got the 21-day sales challenge, you tell them it's 3%, which is good. And I think that for them to have a better mental picture, I compare it with the 8-week sales challenge. The 8 weeks training is a movie, and the 21-day sales is a trailer.
Very true. Yeah, it's a very basic intro. It does help people for sure, but to get up to multiple 6 figures and high 6 figures, even 7 figures, you got to go through the 8-week academy, and you've got to get coaching, right? You've got to get training to learn those skill sets. I know that I had to do that. Like, I didn't become a $2.5 million per year earner in my sales industries by just going through a little bit of training and I'm good. Like I had to continually learn. I had to get coached one-on-one. There was different things I had to do to get to that level, right? So I appreciate you saying that for sure. I think that's a good analogy.
Okay, and now my question, Jeremy. I started presenting this new product only last week. So last Monday, after thinking about my whole approach and everything, I did 10 calls to get the feedback. Now, Tuesday and Thursday, I spoke to, let's say, 25 people each day. So Tuesday, I closed a deal, and Wednesday as well. Thursday, I did not. And Friday, I basically spent a bunch of time rewording everything. And today, before the call, I did like 9. I spoke to 9 people. And I think the results were really, really good. So I wanted to role play with you so that you give me your feedback to know how I can make it better.
Yeah,
Would
sure.
that be okay?
Let's role play for a couple minutes, and then I've got to save time for at least one more question because we've only got about 15 more minutes. But let's role play for the next.
So it's cold call. I'm not just calling companies. Hi. Sorry, Jeremy. Sorry about that. Hi, could you possibly help me out a second?
Yeah, who's this?
My name is Stanley. I'm not sure if you can. I was calling to see if you would be open to looking at any possible hidden gaps in your cash flow that might be holding the company back.
Well, we're not really being held back, but what do you actually do?
Sure, I will gladly explain. You know how a lot of businesses sometimes are having a tough time getting funding from banks because of collateral and credit? Well, what I do is I help businesses like that get access to funds that they can use anytime now or in the future as they like. For instance, to expand, to purchase inventory, and even sometimes to stay in business. But I do not want to bore you to death, and I do not even know if I can help you guys yet. For instance, who do you use as a lender now?
I think that's pretty good. I would, if I'm grading you on an A to an F range, I'm going to say that's about a B range. B as in boy. Okay, so it's good. There's a few tweaks you can make on that.
Okay.
When and that's pretty good. Your tonality was pretty good. You got to keep working on that to make it sound a little bit more natural, but overall pretty good. When you call, you want to say, "Hi, is this George? This is Anthony. You want to say your name. This is Stanley. I was wondering if you could help me out for a moment. So don't forget to say your name. Now, don't say your company or what you do or anything like that, right? Because that's what every salesperson says. Okay, so they're instantly going to throw up the red flags. Like, salesperson's calling me. I got to get rid of them. Okay, so you're just going to say, "Hi, is this George? Is this George here? Hey, George, this is Stanley. I was wondering if you could possibly help me out for a moment." "Yeah, sure. How can I help you?" "Well, I'm not sure if you could yet. I was calling to see if your company would be open to looking at any possible hidden gaps with XYZ that could possibly be holding your company back from where it could be." That's what I would say in that sentence. Okay, and then usually you know if you're doing it right if they say, "Well, how do you do that?" or "What do you mean by that?" "So how do you do that?" or "What do you mean by that?" And then that's when you go into your personalized introduction. See how that works?
Yes, and I at first I did start. The thing is, I have a strong accent, Jeremy, and that plays in a different way. I'm from Haiti.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so what happened is that what happened is that I realized today, as an example, this is when I changed my accent. When I don't try to how do you say that? Take out my accent, I sound a lot more natural, and I don't talk like I'm talking to you right now. I really let it out, like strong accent, and so I know 9 people, 5. I spoke to 5 secretaries or whichever. I got the name of 5 of the owners of the business and the time to call back when they will be there. 3 of them they told, so, "Yeah, we're not interested, etc." But we had to talk, and one of them, after I said my program statement, hung up. So that was a pretty good. I couldn't believe I got that feedback from cold calling. I literally got 1 hang up out of total, and yeah, that's. But anyway, so when I said
you're probably about 75% of the way there. So when you get up to 80, 90, 100% of actually nailing that down, you're never really going to have anybody that hangs up on you, and you only had 1. And what are most salespeople used to? If they call 10 people, they're going to have 9 out of 10 hang up on them, right? So you're already seeing a big difference. So congratulations on that.
The thing is, so thank you very much, Jeremy. And to get back to what you're saying, when I have to say my name, because of my accent, when I said my name, for some reason, I got more rejections. Like, "Hi, this is Stanley." And it kind of, with my accent, sounds awkward. And when I said I was wondering, so that's what really works for me. Maybe I only tried it today, my new approach, and last Thursday and Wednesday and Tuesday it worked for me. When I didn't say my name, it sounds less weird. It's in that sense.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I did that.
If that's helping you by not saying your name there, then I'm totally fine with that because of your accent for sure. So if you're seeing a difference there between saying your name because of your accent and not, then I'm totally fine with that.
And thank you. And any other things that you think I should work on in my approach?
Okay, your personalized introduction, I'd like for you to post that on Facebook so I can actually see how it's written because it sounded a little bit wordy to me. You want to be really careful with going over your solution too much. So your personalized introduction is basically how what you do helps other people. So you know how a lot of businesses are XYZ. Well, what I do is I help those companies do XYZ, but you don't want to word it too lengthy because then it sounds like you're doing like a sales pitch, right? And you're not ready to do that. You're not ready to really introduce your solution. It's far too early in the sales conversation to even bring up that, right? So I'd like to see, because I just heard it real quick, so I'd like to see you actually post that on the Are you on the Facebook thread, one of the Facebook threads?
Yes, I never
post that?
write anything, but yes, I am.
Yeah, post that in the next
I will do
days.
that.
Yeah, so I can see it, and then I can kind of play with it there.
All right.
Cool, man. Great
Thank
question.
you very
All
much, and enjoy your
Hey,
afternoon.
Jeremy. Hey.
All right, so we've got time for
Can you
one
hear me?
last question. Somebody said, hey, who's that?
Yeah, this is Brian Cohen here.
Hey, Brian. All right, Brian. All right, my man.
So,
I've seen a lot of your testimonials out there. Good job.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I sell personal development, and I've gone through the 8-week academy a couple of times.
And my question is not so much on the sales process that you teach, but some of the challenges that have come up as a byproduct of that. In personal development, we have sometimes the opposite problem that other salespeople face, where people get stuck wanting to take our time. And as I get better and better at listening and going through the new model of selling, we have in my current industry, a lot of people, my current company, a lot of people that are fairly low qualified making it through to us. So I'm wondering, how do I transition very elegantly out of a conversation once I can tell somebody who's not really a qualified buyer?
Oh, you might, as far as not qualified financially, be able to purchase what you're selling.
Yeah. So it's pretty clear to me sometimes that some people are just, I'm sure you experience this in network marketing.
And you want to qualify them. You want to say, well, I'm assuming, and let's do this. I should, because they start blabbing, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to help this person. They don't have the financial funds. They said that they were homeless. They just declared bankruptcy. They're homeless. They've got $20 to the name. I can't help them. So I don't want to waste their time, right? You don't want to waste your time. You want to be working with more qualified leads. So you need to qualify them. So go back to, I think it's week 6 of the qualifying stage, okay? Week 6. And you want to use qualifying questions more up front, right, rather than hints. You want to say, well, let's do this, George, just to see if I can help you. But I'm assuming you understand with what we do here with our personal development company that it's going to require capital or credit to put in to be able to learn to get you where you're wanting to go. With your situation that you just told me, what type of funding do you have to put into XYZ to get you where you're wanting to go?
Cool.
You want to ask them what type of funding, because then they might say, well, how much is your product that you sell, Brian? I have no idea.
Anywhere from $400 to $35,000.
Okay, so if they come back and they say, I've got $50 to my name, well, then you know.
Yeah.
Now, they could come back, Brian. I've had this happen in different industries. Like when I was a coach, when I sold internet marketing courses that cost like $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, that range, and they'd come back and they're like, well, I've got about $5,000 to put in. And I'm like, wow, this person just told me they're homeless. You just never know, right, until you qualify them. So you don't want to judge a book by its cover. You just want to straight out ask.
Sure.
I'm assuming that you understand when you start with personal development, and I don't know everything about your company, Brian, I'm just paraphrasing there, but that it's going to require capital or credit to put in to help you get where you're wanting to go. What type of funding do you have to put into this program to actually get you there? Oh, well, I've only got $100. Okay, well, I will tell you with what we do here, you're going to need at least $400 to actually get into the program to help you get to that. Is that something that you can come up with if it fits into what you're looking for? Now, some people might say, yeah, I can do that, or I can borrow it from my Aunt Sally, or I've got a 401k that has $3,000, or they're going to come up with options. Now, if they come back and say, there's just no way, oh my gosh, I can't believe this cost anything, I've got $10, I can't even eat. Well, I apologize. With this, going to require funding, of course, to get involved. Maybe without the type of funding, there's just really nothing I can do to help you. Yeah. And you're just being honest with them, Brian. You're not being mean. You're just, without the funding, I can't help you, right?
Definitely.
And then, hey, if you get closer to get the funding, just come back to me at that point, and then just move on to the next lead.
That's great. Yeah, I was qualifying too late in the process.
Yeah.
And another question that's kind of aligned with that previous one is, I've noticed you've got to
specify something, though, Brian. You don't want to overqualify in the beginning. So if they're giving you signs,
that was my concern.
Funding. Yeah, if they're giving you signs they have no funding, like you find out that they work, there's no fun intended, but let's say they work for $7 an hour and they're supporting a family of 4, well, then you might want to find out if they have funding, right? If they're giving you signs, hey, I'm bankrupt, I have no money, is this going to cost me anything? I spent my last $100 on even talking to you guys, or whatever it is. Then you want to qualify. Now, if she or he's got a stable job and they've got a family, and you don't really have to qualify that person, right?
Right.
Until the end.
Exactly.
Got it.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've just been studying you on these calls and watching how you lead conversations, because I've noticed even when people start running on a little bit, you're redirecting, and I'm trying to observe how you do that, because you do it in a way that doesn't offend. And that's something that I'm trying to work on in mastering my communication strategy. So.
Yeah, and it's just really to clarify, really. So I'm trying to help. The only reason why I ask those questions is to honestly see if what I'm doing can help them. I'm very sincere in that. I'm not saying that. You know how a lot of salespeople say, well, I'm just in sales because I like helping other people. But they're not really sincere about it. They're just trying to make a sale.
Yeah.
When you're a trusted authority, when you learn how to get up to making $400,000 or $500,000 a year or more, or 7 figures as a salesperson, you learn to become detached from the expectations of making the sale, and you're instead focusing on whether or not you can help that person. And when you focus on helping the person, on whether or not you can help them, and you're very honest, like, based on what you've told me, I'm not sure I can actually help you. People will flock to you like no other. They'll come to you like, well, wait a minute. Are you sure you can't help me? Like, how can we work together? People will do that. Like, I had some of the biggest deals of my life, when I sold to, like, company owners and different things, and I was selling some of these big events. And there would be some like, well, based on what you told me, I don't really think that what we're doing is something that would work for your company. And they'd be like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean by that? Like, there's got to be a way we can work together. They would just come back, right? Because I'm just telling them, like, I don't know if I can help you. And I'm just being honest, And because of that, they would refer me other companies. They would go to bat for me, or they just come back and buy anyways, right? Whether or not I could help them, they just wanted to buy, right? So it takes a while, Brian. I mean, obviously, you posted, you went from 30% conversions to 80% conversions or something. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's been awesome, and because of that, I'm getting more and more sensitive to not wanting to talk to the wrong people and getting them off the phone faster.
You're learning.
My question.
It's gonna make you more money because you're gonna have more time with the people who are qualified, and you'll learn that as you get better and better with learning the new model of selling. You're going to become very good at qualifying people. And you're only going to work with people who financially have the funding to do what you're offering, which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's what
I'll see you in Scottsdale.
I'm going to see you in like a week.
Yeah, it's easy to pay for the mastermind because buying the Academy already made plenty of money to, pay for this too. So, yeah, it's been awesome. So I'm just really excited.
Well, congratulations, my friend. So, I will see you at the event next Friday and Saturday in Scottsdale, Arizona. Congratulations.
All right. Likewise. Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys, that concludes our call. Our time to call. We usually do about an hour and 15 minutes. Sometimes we'll go an hour and a half, but today we're going to do about an hour and 15. So this call will be recorded. Thank you for everybody for being on. I appreciate everybody that asked the questions. I believe it was Steve, Brandon, Stanley, and Brian. Thanks so much. I know those questions probably helped a lot of people that are listening to the call or who are going to get the recorded version of this training call later tonight. So whatever country you're in, whether it's early in the morning or afternoon or late in the evening, if you're over in Europe, congratulations on being the call, and I will see everybody next Tuesday at the same time, 4 p.m. Eastern. Next Tuesday, we're going to train more on qualifying questions. We're going to a little bit more over about what I just talked with Brian. We're going to do that next week. So this call is a wrap. I will see everybody next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern.